Hey all you super players out there. Today I'm going to go over Dae Han's first place deck list at PPG Orlando and kind of talk about why Janemba is doing so well in the meta right now. And I'm going to go over something called the Janemba cycle. We appear to have Janemba decks that just does well and then it goes out for a little bit and then does well again. And I'm going to kind of go over why that is and why Janemba kind of keeps coming back into the metagame. So first off, we have Dae Han's deck list right here. I'm not going to go over every card because it's Janemba, and we've pretty much seen like Janemba before, but what makes this different is it's tricolor Janemba. What allows him to do that is the fact that all the counterplays from the newest set only require one of their color energy, so it makes it very easy to splash them into other decks. So he gets to play a full 13 counterplays, and all you need to do is prevent your opponent from basically playing the game for the first 4 or 5 turns with these counterplays, and then mill them out. Usually Janemba's clock is usually between turn 5 and 6 for the mill out. And so now I'm going to kind of show you. So this is the decks entered into the PPG event, and I kind of want to go over why Janemba does well in this meta that we have here. So before this event, if someone predicted the meta, it probably would be pretty similar to this. I think this is pretty representative, except for the fact that we had so many Janemba players there. And that's pretty unusual, but I think a lot of people realize that Janemba is in a really good place in this meta, and that's why that happened. So if you look at the top 6 decks, except for Janemba, which we're playing, 4 out of the top 6 are control decks. The Shenron, Toa, and Gogeta, as well as Janemba himself, are all control decks. Decks that try to play for late, and then you can punish them pretty hard. By dropping things like Kaioken Goku, 6-drop Gogeta that shuffles their hand back, or in Toa's case, you drop your Miras down. They're decks that play for late game, play for big bombs. That's where a lot of the meta is right now, and that's one of the reasons Janemba is so good right now. The other 2 decks are U6 Kaba and Kid Ku, and both of these decks rely on getting a singular battle card into play in order for their engines to run, which makes them very susceptible to counterplay cards, which we're running 13 of. Kid Ku needs to drop that Goku. Now with Kid Ku, it's not quite as bad. This deck probably has the best matchup against the Janemba because of its ability to go wide for cheap. But if you don't slam that Goku down turn 1 and they get a second energy up, man, it's going to be really hard to win that game because all they got to do is counter your Goku and you're not going to be able to kill them fast enough. Kaba, on the other hand, is a rush deck, but the fact that your whole deck relies around Champa Vados, if they can prevent that Champa Vados from coming in or, counterplay it, the counterplays are really good against those 4 drops coming into play too. So it just makes it really awkward and very difficult to play. So if we look, Janemba has I'd say an even if not advantageous matchup against almost every deck that's being played right now, which is something you don't get very often. So now I want to go forward, and so we're going to take a look at the Janemba cycle. So let's look at the past format, and in a format where Janemba didn't do as well. It was probably tier 2, like it was still played, but it definitely wasn't as good as it was now. So if we go back to the previous format, which was rush decks like Kid Ku and Lord Slug, and the control deck was Height of Mastery. So if we look at the matchups there, Lord Slug was pretty much an auto win against Janemba, and Kid Ku could beat it because all it had to really do was go wide and not draw cards. And that wasn't too difficult to do because Janemba didn't really have a good way to stop the actual Goku, 1-drop Goku from staying on the board. So you just sat there, went wide, and swung at him, and eventually you managed to beat them out. And then even the control deck, which Janemba is normally good against, was Height of Mastery, and that was still a pretty rough matchup because Height of Mastery was incredibly consistent at turn 4, slamming down the Height of Mastery, tapping your opponent out, and so you were forcing them to use their leader negate, and just putting them in a really, really bad position. So that's an example of a format where Janemba wouldn't be good. Now the cycle comes in to basically what kind of deck is more prevalent. Because Dragon Ball Super tends to go on kind of a waveform where A control decks will be better, and then rush decks will be better, and then control decks will be better. And that's a way that Bandai has of kind of making sure that everyone gets to have a format where they like playing in. If you like rush decks, you get to play a format where rush decks are good. If you like control decks, you get to play a format where control decks are good. And it kind of cycles back and forth. And that's why we see Janemba do really well and then fall out of the meta and then do really well and fall out of the meta, is because formats where control decks are good, Janemba is going to be good. Formats where rush decks are good, Janemba is not going to be so good. So that's kind of the cycle we see. And if you're a Janemba player, if you want to play Janemba at an event, that's what you should look at. You should look at, all right, am I going to see more rush decks where I'm going to be pressured early and have to commit cards? Because that is not a good position for Janemba to be in. But is it more control decks? Is it more Shenron where my opponent's going to have to use Dragon Balls to draw cards? Or Set 6 Gogeta where they're going to have their play on like turn 5 or 6 because I don't have to kill their ramp card to win. Like, that's kind of what you have to look at going forward if you're going to try and play this deck. So yeah, I'm actually really interested to see where the meta goes going forward. It sure seems like Janemba is going to be in a really good position. So I'm going to be very interested to see this upcoming weekend at the national qualifier it's not in Chicago, somewhere in Illinois. I'm really, really interested to see exactly how Janemba does there, if people bring in more rush decks to try and counter it, or if people are still playing the same Shenron, Toa, Set 6 Gogeta kind of thing in order to win. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see where it goes. The other thing that I expect to see a lot is I'm going to see probably TN, the black 4-drop TN, in like every side deck. If you're going to this event, side deck 4 TN, because you're going to need it for this Janemba matchup pretty much no matter what deck you're playing. But yeah, so I'll be really interested to see how this is going forward. Congratulations to Dae Han Hardesty for his win at the PPG. Everyone go out there, have some fun, play some Super.